All right, Joy. So tell me a little bit about yourself. How did you find a waspy? And tell me a little bit about your husband and tell me a little bit about the your story a little bit.
So yeah, I'm a wife of how long have we been married? I think it's 15 years. And I have two boys. One is just turned 12 and the other one is 13, and we do homeschooling with them. So that's pretty much our life right now. But as far as my faith's journey, that started in 2014. So
Wow.
prior to that, I was
10
raised
years.
Christian. Yeah.
All
Yeah,
right.
I was a Christian prior to that. So that's the way I was raised from my childhood up. And then even after
Hmm.
I got grown and went off to college, I was still very involved in my church at my college campus and stuff like that. And then I think it was around 2008 is when I came into the Hebrew Israelite knowledge. So my
Oh
husband
yeah,
and I came into that together. We weren't married at the time, but that's something that we delved in very deeply and we studied that very deeply. And that went on till about 2013. And then I started reading the Essene writings,
yeah,
and that just opened up a whole nother window as far as spiritual understanding was concerned. I think the first one I read was the Gospel of the Essenes,
yeah.
and that was when I started to question like some of the stuff in the Bible that wasn't lining up with that, as far as like vegetarianism and not supposed to be killing animals and things of that nature. So that's kind of where the sweater started to come unraveled a little bit, but I was still trying to figure out a way to harmonize it. Like maybe there was something I missed, or I figured there was a way to bring it all together.
Hmm.
So I started really researching like the history of like the Old Testament, how it came together, the blood sacrifice rituals, especially. I was trying to figure out what was going on with that
Yeah,
because the Essene writings were saying the opposite. Like you're not even supposed to kill an animal or harm them or anything.
yeah.
So this research went on for several months, and at the end of it, I was fully convinced that somehow the blood sacrifice rituals of the Old Testament were not like the original commandments that the Israelites were given. Like somehow it had got mixed in, or we was missing something. I wasn't
Right.
sure what, but something was off. But surprisingly, I still believed in the Bible.
Oh wow.
I still was like, well, that part is off, but the rest of it is probably true. And you know how that religious mindset is. Like you have to figure out a way to make it work.
Yes, yes, you do.
So I was trying to figure out a way to make it work. And then I started questioning the New Testament because I was like, wait a minute, if they weren't supposed to be killing those animals for sacrifices, then who was Jesus Christ? What was that whole thing
Yeah.
about? So then I started looking at the origin of the New Testament, and I found out a lot of stuff that I was never told, like the fact
Hmm.
that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were not even written by anybody named Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And
Totally anonymous. Who
yeah,
knew?
and nobody ever told me this. And I was just like, this was very upsetting to me because I'm like, why am I just now finding all this out? Like, why didn't the pastor or, the spiritual leaders, why they never disclose this information? You know what I mean? I felt like there was some sort of like deception at play because apparently like they learned about this in seminary school and things like that. But I was just finding this out on YouTube or on Google.
Yeah.
So long story short, right around this time is when I discovered the OWASP because I saw like the picture. I seen it with some pieces missing, but I was starting to see a picture. And
How
then I discovered, go ahead.
how? Like how did you even hear about a waspy? Like what?
That must have been something ordained by the creator because it just came at the right time
Yeah.
and it just seemed too synchronistic. But actually found about it on YouTube. Uh,
Yeah.
brother Sila Shalom's YouTube
Uh,
channel. I was
Yep.
just
Yep.
scrolling on YouTube one day, just I wasn't even looking at anything related to that, and I happened to click on one of his videos, just curious to see what was going on. And he introduced this book, which at first I was like, this is demonic. I was like, wait a minute, I thought he was about to be teaching from the scripture or something. I'm like, I don't know what this is. So I almost clicked off, but I think it was just some curiosity to figure out what this book was because I had never heard
Mm,
of it, that I kept
yeah.
listening. And then by the end of the video, I was like hooked.
Hmm.
It basically had been confirming, like the video I clicked on was confirming a lot of the stuff that I had been studying, but was missing pieces to. And
Yeah.
all the gaps just started to close. So I was like, okay, I got to figure out what else this book is saying. It might still be demonic, but let me see what it's saying about the origin of the New Testament, the Old Testament. Like, I really wanted to see what it had to say on that. Shout out to Brother Sila Shalom, because I mean, like, I sat there and watched his videos for like months straight. Seriously, I had a job
Hmm.
where you could like have on headphones all day long if you were, while you were working, and I just listened to his videos all day long. And it was just like all of the puzzle pieces connected. And I knew that it was something that was like of a higher power involved in bring this
Yeah.
information to me because I didn't have any like support at the time. I was surrounded by a lot of religious people. And
Yeah.
as I was starting to look at other things, there was some controversy in the family having to do with that. So it was beautiful to find something that was kind of confirming that I was going on the right track.
Well, what was your husband thinking about? What's your husband's name, by the way?
His name is Robert.
Robert. Oh, cool. I just interviewed a Robert. He lives in Japan. Uh, okay, so what was his? I mean, did you keep the secret, or you just trying to
Mm.
keep it on down low, or he's like all out in the open, and what's his perspective on it?
Well, I think that along the way I was sharing information with him, like even when I started reading the Essene writings, and
Hmm.
I had eventually decided I wanted to stop eating meat and things like that I was sharing along the way, and he
Yeah.
understood the path I was on. He's not like a highly judgmental person, and even though he was very knowledgeable as far as our faith at the time, he has a very like open mind where he's able to receive new information better at
Hmm.
that than I was actually. So it wasn't a problem for him at all as long as you could show him like what the inconsistencies were and things like that. So
Hmm. Not emotionally attached to information.
no, definitely not. Mm-mm.
That's good. I mean, that's a huge barrier, actually. People get emotionally attached to their doctrine and other things, and that to me that's a huge barrier because it Christianity, even though I could see the inconsistencies, I was emotionally attached to it. I had so many emotions wrapped up, both trauma and good. I mean, this all it was all in the basket, and it took me
Mm-hmm.
a while to even just say it out loud. I was done with the Bible or I was done with Jesus. Like it took me a while just to be able to say that.
Yeah, I understand. That's exactly how I was. Even though I felt it in my spirit, it took me a while to really admit it to myself. And that was
Hmm.
part of the reason why I had to spend so much time studying it because I was trying to prove that I was right, basically, and that my whole life
Hmm.
wasn't like a lie. But at
Yeah.
the same time, I don't regret like my spiritual journey, like the way I was raised and stuff. I don't throw the baby out with the bathwater,
Hmm.
because I guess it was stepping stones. You know, you some people need to start off with the Bible. Like some people, if it wasn't for that, they'd be out here a lot worse. So I mean, I understand that it has benefits, but it does have a glass ceiling on it that once you get into it and you get stuck on it, you can't get past a certain level with just the
Yeah.
Bible.
Yeah. Definitely there's a limitation there. I Same way, every path I was talking to, I mean, it comes up a lot actually trying to condemn one path or one belief system or whatever. But a WASP basically says that the long way around is the way to go. Our
Mhm.
journey is unique to our own self. And
Yes.
everything we've gone through, every mistake we've made, everything we believed is a custom made, tailored classroom. for us. And
Yes, I
we
agree.
have to look at it that way because we wouldn't be where we're at if we hadn't been where we were.
Yes, that's very true. I like that analogy with the classroom.
It's a unique path. Everyone has got to have their own starting place, and not every, we could be on the same journey but taking a different road.
Exactly, right? I agree with that.
So, but your husband was with you when you were both Hebrew Israelites, or at least were you like actual Hebrew Israelites, or is that just sort of investigation? Okay, you were. So I looked into Hebrew roots. It seems like the people who are really searching try to it seems like there's a phase where we go back to wanting more rules and more structure, more authenticity, more of the original teachings. And so
hmm
I've run across a lot of people, and I myself, I didn't join anything. There's nothing to join. For me, there was nothing to join. But I really considered being like part of the Hebrew roots community online or something like that because I wanted the truth. I wanted the real deal.
hmm
And I didn't get involved with it. I kept studying, but the appeal of it was very strong. I wanted whatever it was that I was missing, I was looking for it. And Hebrew roots, Hebrew Israelite, it's very similar,
hmm
seemed for a while to really speak to me as, um, it's kind of going closer to what you think is the original.
Yeah. Yes. Prior to that, even when I was a child, my mother, she always was searching too, but she was
Mhm.
never like able to get out of the confines of the scripture. So she was searching within different denominations. And I remember
Mm.
going to a Hebrew roots community for a while when I was a child. It wasn't like the Black Hebrew Israelites or anything. It was mostly white people in that church.
Mhm.
But they practiced like keeping the Sabbath and the holy days and
Yep.
just basically going back to that original culture and
Yeah.
trying to incorporate that using the sacred names, not using the name Jesus and stuff like that. So we did
Mhm.
that back when I was a child for a while.
Okay. So you were
hmm
familiar with that.
Yeah,
Um,
we didn't stick in it because, like I said, we went to a lot of different churches. I even remember we went to a Quaker church one
oh,
time. One
nice.
time we went.
Is
I was like
Quaker the
9 years
same as
old.
Foursquare, or is that different? Two different things.
I'm not sure. I know that they're pacifists. And I
Yeah.
do know that like their church services, they don't have like a sermon or a preacher. They just sit in silence. And then if you like hear a word from the spirit, you might get up and say a word and then sit back down, but you just sit in silence the whole time. So that was a unique experience. I was like 9. Um,
Oh,
and I
interesting.
had never experienced that before. It was really hard to sit still, but
That would be interesting. Like I don't really feel comfortable with the idea of going back to a church, but that would be something I would be willing to experience. That would be interesting.
yeah, it was definitely I mean, I do like the idea of not being preached at, and
Right.
everybody can say something, or you can just be quiet and listen to what your spirit is saying. So I do like that. But I do
Hmm.
miss like having a congregation to gather with and like people to fellowship with. You don't really have anywhere to find the people that, like think like you. So that's why what you're doing is it's truly a gift.
Well, I'm glad you appreciate it. I I I it feels kind of selfish sometimes because it really is me me trying to figure out some way of getting connected to other people. And so, but I'm glad other outside of myself, it's a blessing to other people. So
hmm
that's good.
Yeah.
I'm glad you appreciate it.
Yeah, I think there's more of us out here than what we realize. We just don't really know how to find each other.
Yes, yes. There. So my wife and I, we found a waspy. We read it for a year, and I can't remember the timing of it, but we had our Facebook accounts muted or deleted at some point. And then when we got back on it, for some reason we couldn't. I don't know how hard we looked, but one way or the other, we spent a year before we found any other faithists. And then when it felt like once one domino fell over, we were just like able to, on Facebook find a lot of faithists and YouTube channels. And like I said, I just talked to somebody from Japan last week. There's not very many of us for the world, but there's a lot more of us than I thought. I thought there was. I didn't. I thought maybe the possibility of never meeting a faithist was a real possibility for a year. But then all of a sudden, I just started meeting a bunch of faithists, which is a huge blessing.
Yeah, what year was that again?
Um, I think it's 2020. I actually wrote the date in Owaspy when we got it. It was 2021. So not. I've been saying 4 years. So okay, 3 years then.
Oh, okay. And how did you find the book?
Well, 21. Huh. I thought it was 2020. Anyways, I was I was on my way out of Christianity already. I had gone from um Seventh-day Adventist, which is a very unique form of Christianity, to non-denominational, to home ecclesia type of thing. And I was in a Bible study. It was a sort of a mixed. It was like a non-denominational Bible study. It wasn't like sponsored by a church. There were people from other churches there, and so I kept getting less and less sort of like churchy, but I still wanted to be like unchurched Christian. I still was hanging on to that. And this
Mm-hmm.
was 21, so there was the drama with Trump and all of that, and QAnon stuff, and the home ecclesia that I was involved in was very Christian nationalist, and looking back, I'd say it's very culty, very um I anyway. So I was taking on some of that. I mean, I was really looking into the politics and the Christian origin of the country and all this stuff, and trying to make America Christian again, all this stuff. So I was doing a lot of consumption of YouTube videos in this type of doing this type of research.
Mm-hmm.
So I was watching a political video, and this guy had a mountain of books and paperwork, and he was telling me all this inside information about the election and Trump and like the white hats and the black hats and all this stuff. And all of a sudden, he holds up a waspy and he said, none of this would be even an issue if people would stop reading the Bible and realize this was the truth. This is the true history of the world, the true, he was making some outrageous claims. I'm like, I've never heard of this book before. And 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 this was not a religious video. So I write it down. I text my wife later, and we're looking into books. We're doing research. We are doing our due diligence, trying to figure out what's going on in the world. I said, we got to look into this book, Owaspy. I'm not really sure anything about it. I just saw it on a video, and we just got to look into it, do some research on it. I went to work. I worked night shift. And close to the end of the shift, I texted her. I was like, did you get that text I about Owaspy? Um, and, um, I put it on our Amazon list, not in the shopping cart, just on the list, just a kind of a bookmark so we could look into it later. And she said, I got your text and it's going to be here in 2 days. I'm like, what? Because that's not like us. We can research, a book. We don't buy every book that just comes along. And I said, why did you buy it? We don't know anything about this book. And she's like, I don't know why we bought it, but it's going to be here in 2 days and we got to read it because when I saw that book, there was something inside of me that spoke to me. I said, okay, all right, I guess we bought it. I'm going to 30 or $40, fine, whatever. We read it straight through. We read it straight through together every morning. And we had the most amazing experience, the most amazing growth as a couple. It was just an unbelievably awesome year. And now
Wow.
we read it separately. She's on her fourth time through it. I can't keep up with her. I can't keep up with her. She's the power reader.
Wow.
Yeah, she's on her fourth time through a Waspy. I'm like, wow, good for you, but I cannot keep up with you.
Wow, that is so awesome that y'all discovered that together. What's her name again?
Her name is Stacy.
That is such a beautiful.
Well, it's a miracle because our entire relationship we've had been on a different page. I was Adventist. At least I had that Adventist mindset, and she was Mormon. She had that Mormon mindset, and so we did our best to not to like judge each other or whatever, but we never were really on the same page. And so Waspy was truly a new chapter in our life where we could focus on one thing and be on the same page. Let me ask you this. So you and your husband are both faithists. Did that happen before you had children?
No, that was in 2014. So our kids were like 1 and 3 at the time.
Okay, well that's still pretty young.
Hmm.
Do you know you know how privileged a position you're in to actually be raising kids from that young to without they're not going to have that religious trauma that you and I have. They're going to have their
Yeah,
own issues,
yeah,
but they're not going to have that.
exactly. Exactly. I
That's so cool.
I do recognize that, and I'm very, very thankful for that because I definitely would have been raising them in the scriptures. We
Hmm.
probably would have been attending some sort of Hebrew Israelite congregation. So I'm really thankful that like they never had meat before. And
Oh
even though they're
wow.
1 and 3, like they were really picky eaters, like especially my oldest, like he would not eat anything. And
Hmm.
as a result, he had never had meat. And by the time he did start eating, I had already changed that aspect. So I figured that might have been the reason for that.
Wow, that is awesome.
Yeah.
So they pretty everything their whole world as far as their memory goes has been a waspian base. Um, I'm sure you encouraged them to think for themselves. What like independent thoughts have they come up to you with what's their journey like with a waspy?
Yeah. So I had a lot of time to think about how I wanted to introduce the information to them since they were so
Uh-huh.
young when I found it. And
Right.
what I came to was that I didn't want to like introduce the book to them for a while. Like I wanted to give them time to be able to learn how to get that direct inspiration from the creator first before
Yeah,
they
awesome.
given any books or any information. And that way when they did come across the information in the OWASP or any other source, that they would be able to have it resonate with their own spirit based on what they've already experienced in life. So I didn't actually start introducing the OWASP to them in a more direct way until like a couple of years ago.
Oh
And
wow.
they've already seen the book. They've heard of the book. It's always been around, but like I never like read to them from the book or anything like that till about a couple of years ago. And
And how did
mhm.
how was that received?
Well, it was received very well. Like we didn't like put it on a pedestal or anything. Like we always read a lot of books in our house, and we've
Hmm.
always tons of books around, and I've always read to them a lot, doing
Yeah.
the homeschooling and everything. So I just introduced it like a book amongst other books. And
Hmm.
we would talk about it and discuss the stories in it just for the moral value of it, regardless of
Right.
whether or not every detail was true. Or, like, for example, the book of Fragapati, it has so many awesome morals in it that
Mm-hmm.
children can pick up on. And then being that we homeschool, it's a really great companion because it deals with history, science, cosmology, health and wellness. Like it just
Yeah.
touches on everything. So it was very well received because the information is pretty simple,
Mm,
actually,
yeah.
to the mind that's not been indoctrinated is very simple to understand.
Yeah. Wow. I'm trying to imagine what it would be like to not have the indoctrination running in the background of my mind.
Yeah, I don't
What's
know
that
what that's
like?
like. You know what? That's funny because some of the stuff that like I read in the OAS be like really hit me like, wow, that's really profound. But to them, it was just like, yeah, okay, makes sense, whatever.
They can't appreciate it at the moment.
Right. Like you're not supposed to worship false gods, like duh. Like
And you're like, oh, but yeah, but the it's amazing. Like, the dots are connected, and to them, it's just common sense.
exactly. Like they don't get it the way it don't hit them the way it hit me because like for me it was like the blindfold falling off. And for
Hmm.
them it's just like basic everyday knowledge. So that's a good thing. That is a good thing.
So I'm really apologizing that I burned through our whole hour by taking a nap. But since our time is short, I generally ask this every time I get a chance. What was it's kind of a two-part question. What was the when you started reading Waspy, what was the first thing that like set your spirit on fire, your brain, like, oh my goodness, there might be something to this. This is the truth. What was that for you?
Um, hmm. Well, it had to have been in that first video I was watching with Brother Silas Shalom because I didn't stop watching it. And I don't actually remember what that video was, but I do remember it was having something to do with I think it was like Sakaya Buddha and like the origin of Buddhism and stuff like that. That really clicked with me because I had just been studying how a lot of the New Testament writings had been basically taken from those ancient scripts. So that went
Hmm.
off for me. But when I actually got the book and started like really diving into it for myself, the thing that stood out to me the most was, first of all, the nature of the creator being totally different from what I had always been taught, as far as there wasn't this fear-based doctrine. There was no
Yeah.
fear involved in anything. There was no anger involved in anything. And also the history of the nation of Israel, how they were like practicing a totally different lifestyle from what we were ever taught about. They weren't killing animals. They weren't doing all these crazy practices. Like I never knew that.
Right.
And God wasn't angry. He wasn't like trying to kill everybody. Like it was just this whole nother paradigm, which even when you're young, reading these stories in your heart, something about that just never sat right with you, but you just always had to ignore it because it's in the Bible, right? So
Right.
those are things that stood out to me, like finding out the true origin of, because I told you, like I had been studying the blood sacrifice rituals at first. And I have figured out that this must not be right. I don't know how. Like I was missing the pieces, but this must not have been what was supposed to happen. But then when it came with all of those missing pieces and it fit together and it made perfect sense, that was like probably the most profound thing for me because it let me know that there was veracity to this history that was being told in this book.
Right. Yeah, isn't it crazy how uh, a book, I mean, the whole thing like shouldn't make any sense. Like some dude writing a book in his basement or whatever, 150 years ago, and it makes every dot, not just from the Bible, but all of the religions, like everything connects in a way that's consistent and internally consistent and also consistent with the world around us.
Yeah.
That's incredible. But to me, that's a miracle just by itself.
It is a miracle, and it makes sense then that he did get it from angels because nobody else could have figured all of that out. Like, there's no way nobody could have figured all that out.
Before
And
the internet.
mhm,
how
right,
how would you have access to all that?
the
Yeah.
people who say that he plagiarized it never even read the book. They couldn't come to that conclusion if they read it. They would have to say this came from another
Yeah.
source. Now, whether or not it was a righteous source or not, you might debate that, but you would know for a fact that it didn't come from no one man in his basement.
Mhm. Yeah. I got a friend that was their first reaction. They did a quick Google search and like, oh well, he got it from this, listed 20 books, and like some of these books were written in like the 1950s. So I don't know what your Google must be broken. Your Google's not working right.
Yep.
Okay, so the second part of the question is what was something you came across that was really hard for you to assimilate into sort of to get?
Hmm. I can't really think of anything actually because I went into the book with the whole idea of I'm about to prove this book wrong. I'm gonna find the demonology in it because it's in everything. Like I'm gonna
Right,
figure out so I can get rid of it and like just go back to the Bible. Like I went into it with that religious mindset of you gotta find Satan in this somewhere. So
right,
but I come across it. There were things in there that sounded strange, like about the ions and I forgot what they were called, the white people and the drugs, that whole aspect, which kind of raised some eyebrows. But the way it was explained to me, it had nothing to do with race at all. So it was easy for me to kind of move past that. I know a lot of people get caught up on that because of, the history that we've experienced, where it is a
right.
cause for concern anytime you see anything that seems like it's saying one thing when it's not. But for me, when I came across that, I had already seen too much that was true in this book. There was
Mm-hmm.
already too much going on in this book. I wasn't about to just throw out the baby with the bathwater. And
Right.
but as I began to even study that deeper, I realized that it wasn't saying what it sounded like it was saying. So, but other than that, I really haven't at this point come across anything that was concerning to me in that kind of a way. And
Mm,
I've done the due diligence. I've done a lot of research and studying the historical data on these things, and everything has been lining up. But if for
mm-hmm.
nothing else, being able to walk away from the book without um, living in fear anymore and being able to just experience the creator free from fear and free from
Yeah.
mind control is more than worth it, in my opinion.
What an amazing gift having your fear taken away,
Mm,
right?
exactly.
Fear and shame.
Yes.
To me, that was when I realized the truth of, yeah, the nature of the creator, like what his opinion of this process is. And I realized, oh, yeah, it's a process. It's not saved or lost. It's a journey,
Mm-hmm.
from unripe fruit to ripe fruit. Fear and shame just vanished away. I'm like, wow, what a burden just taken off my shoulders.
I know.
That to me, that to me has been the biggest gift, the most significant gift, and being free of the need to constantly judge people, judge what they believe. You know, so much freedom just getting rid of all of that.
It's freedom, and it makes you want. It doesn't cause you to move further because people think if you get rid of the hellfire and all the punishment and stuff, you just gonna get out here, you can do whatever you want, you can be crazy, you don't have to worry about nothing happening to you. And
Hmm.
oh my God, it actually has the opposite effect where you desire more purity, you desire to live more in alignment with the Creator and with creation. And because you're desiring
Yep.
it from a place of love instead of fear, it's authentic, which is another thing
Mhm.
I appreciate about the OSP is when you get around people who actually read the book it's almost like the only people it resonates with are people who are like authentic people. It's people
Yeah.
who um have more of a trustworthy nature to them. It attracts a certain vibration of people. And so it's like
Hmm.
once you get amongst faithists, it's a whole nother energy going on here. So I really
Yeah.
appreciate that.
It's weird how that works. I mean, it's operating on different principles. So
Mhm.
if you can appreciate the principles, that will, if it definitely is like a filter, if you can read the book and it resonates with you, that it just means that you're ready. And
Yeah,
everybody else, they're not ready yet.
not yet.
Not yet.
Yep.
I do TikToks. I don't know if you're on TikTok era, but I have a TikTok channel for a waspy, and um one of the topics I had done was my life improved when I left religion, and then a guest came on and he's like, "Well, I'm guessing your life improved because you could drink and have sex and like you could just do whatever you wanted. Is that what you're trying to say?" Like, actually, the opposite. I was drinking. I love wine. You can ask my wife. I haven't had any wine in years, and I got way more conservative, way more restrictive in my diet, in what I watch, in alcohol consumption, like everything.
Yep.
And it was exactly right, exactly what you said. It was because I wanted to. I wanted to be closer to the creator. It wasn't because of fear. And that is a huge difference. That's a huge difference. It's crazy
Yes,
how
it
that
is.
one little tiny shift can be a huge, huge difference maker.
It surely is. Absolutely. I would be interested in whoever that guy is that you said had held up the book for you. You said he had a YouTube channel. I would be interested in checking him out.
I really haven't been able to find the channel or I would like to find that specific video. Um, if I find it, I'll let you know.
Yeah,
I
please do. You said he was
so
in the Q thing. Was he into the whole QAnon thing?
yeah, it was that sort of that same vein. It
Because
was
I studied that a lot too, especially back in 2020.
Oh yeah. I got really sucked into that plus a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a guy. The actual YouTube channel, I think, was this dude. He was the host, and he was high, I think, most of the time. He looked like half asleep, and he was doing bong hits. The other dude in the background, he was the one who was throwing out all the information, and he looked clean as a whistle, like his mind was intact, and he was throwing out facts all day long. And I don't know what his name was, but if I find it, I'll let you know.
Please do. Please do.
You know,
Yeah, but we can definitely set something else up if you would like to do this again. I know you mentioned you want to possibly have the boys on and hear what they have to say. So we could definitely set that up again sometime in the future.
yeah, that'd be cool. I'd like to meet your husband and I'd like to have more time with you next time. I promise I won't fall asleep.
Yeah, my husband, I don't know. He's kind of, like your wife in terms of I'm not sure if I'll be able to get him on camera. We'll see, but
But like I
we'll,
said, this doesn't even have to be on YouTube. The YouTube thing is kind of um my primary goal is to meet other faithists. And the
right.
there's been plenty of conversations that I haven't put on YouTube. So if he doesn't want to be on YouTube, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I
I,
appreciate you for inviting me on. It's truly a
yeah,
blessing. I feel honored to be able to come on here and commune with you. So,
definitely. It's very nice to meet you. Good conversation, even though it was short. Um, I look forward to it again, and much blessings and light to you, Joy. And tell your family hi, and I look forward to speaking with them as well. And just carry on in the light, sister.
you too, brother. Send my love to your wife as well. And hopefully we can talk to her too also one day. So,
Yep.
All
All
right.
right,
Thank you.
sounds good. You're welcome.
Goodbye.
Talk to you later. Bye.